The 19th round of the 2023 season saw Formula 1 return to the land of the fat and stupid people. I'm really winning over my 22% American audience, aren't I? Anyway, hey there guys, I'm Will, welcome to FP1, and the best American race on the calendar. And that's not as big of a compliment when you remember the other two were Miami and Vegas. Now don't get me wrong, the USGP looks like a fantastic experience, and from a fan's perspective, I'm sure it's amazing. But while the circuit has seen several good races in the last 11 years, has it ever really seen a great one? Now admittedly, I record this bit before the race on Sunday morning, but I have seen the sprint, so if that's anything to go by, welcome to Comedy Review Bedtime Stories with FP1. Now roll that intro. So it's been 2 weeks since the last race in Qatar, and that means we have plenty of news to get stuck in with before I have to find some material in the on-track action this weekend. Now in the last few years, Formula 1 has seen a huge boom in the United States, and this has led to some of the long-term fans criticising those new to our sport for not knowing what they're f***ing talking about. While most of this gatekeeping is completely unnecessary, can we just take a moment to ask who employed the organisers of the USGP this weekend? First off, Twitter was sent into a frenzy when banners around the circuit replaced Lance Stroll with Felipe Drugovich. Unfortunately, it was later confirmed that alongside the person who had put this up, Lawrence Stroll is still acting without the use of his brain. The mistakes would continue though. Daniel Ricciardo was back from injury this weekend, though someone got a Set 8 kid to spell his name above the Aussie's pit box. #Bless was also in the news this week when the Brit was recalled to the stewards after he was mistaken for a Just Stop Oil protester walking across the track after his Turn 1 clash with George Russell in Qatar. Whilst Hamilton was initially fined for the infraction, the stewards decided that since he was a role model, it wasn't enough, this coincidentally occurring at the same time they announced fines for F1 drivers could go up to as much as €1 million from now on. Fair to say the internet wasn't very happy. Now alongside the Formula 1, fans at the track, as well as those at home who remembered the series still existed, got to watch the finale of the all-female F1 Academy series this weekend. Hamilton was seen spending a lot of time in the support paddock, and I won't lie, any other 38-year-old man spending his weekend hanging out with 17-year-old girls would just be deemed as f***ing weird. But I guess he's a role model, so that's okay. Moving on, and in rare Alpine news, the team announced a bucket load of random sports people as new investors to the team. This included the likes of Patrick Mahomes, Rory McIlroy, and Taylor Swift's new love interest Travis Kelce, which makes me think this is just another petty ploy from the French outfit to piss off Fernando Alonso. And finally, this USGP marks several big anniversaries for a few of the drivers on the grid. George Russell and Lando Norris were celebrating their 100th Grand Prix, while Charles Leclerc would be entering his 100th start with Ferrari. One might wonder why then, to mark such a special occasion, the Monegasque chose to wear an NFL pitch on his head, and as it turned out, Charles had just forgot. Sometimes the Scuderia puns just write themselves. Let's get into FP1 then, and it would be world champion Max Verstappen on top in the only practice session of the weekend. Red Bull were one of 3 teams running special liveries, their new Look RB19 being flown into the country earlier this week, and there sadly being no one there to drop it onto Helmut Marko's spine. Williams also chose to paint the Logan Sargent meme on the back of his car, whilst Haas showed up to FP1 with an all-new look and upgrade package. They were still though. Oscar Piastri would then add some fluorescent brown to his McLaren livery, with this off early into the session, and Lance Stroll would also run into problems, which in rare scenes weren't actually driver related. The Aston Martin press release later said the team were ecstatic that the crew didn't have to rebuild the car overnight for once. Aston were having a bit of an off weekend this time out, only solidified when Alonso caught Kelce and Swift in the grandstand, the distraction knocking him out of Q1 on Friday evening. As the green cars joined the Williams pair and Nico Hülkenberg in the drop zone, Q2 was getting underway, and as usual nothing much happened, so I'm not going to waste any more of your time. Q3 was looking far more spicy anyway, when Charles Leclerc dealt the first blow and outpaced Verstappen by 2/10 on the initial runs. The Dutch Messiah would bounce back come the end, looking to have beaten the Scuderia by a measly 0.05 of a second. That was until track limits called and told Verstappen they wanted his time back, dropping the 2023 champion to P6, though despite this he was still able to outqualify Perez. Next up on the schedule was Sprint Saturday. Now, as regular viewers will know, I'm one of the 5 people who actually like this new format, and yet even I can agree that I would much rather have spent my evening gouging my eyes out with a spoon. Sprint quali was just a repeat of normal quali, only overnight stewards had conveniently changed the track limits so Verstappen could take pole. And then we got to the race, where I won't lie, not much really happened, so just bear with me on this one. Leclerc made a good start, with Verstappen covering off the Ferrari by squeezing him into Mexico as the cars approached turn 1. Charles' compromised line allowed Lewis Hamilton to slip into second, the Brit going on to chase Verstappen closely for about 5 laps before he gave up and cruised home to a podium. Further back, Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll were side by side, which ended really well last year, though this time both made it through, Lance being so surprised that he went straight on at the next corner. As Verstappen sailed up the road as per usual, all eyes turned to his teammate, who was battling for 6th place in what was turning out to be a very good race for Perez standards. Having got past Piastri, George Russell thought it was his turn to have a go, doing so by making up his own circuit and being shafted with a 5-second penalty as a result. Carlos Sainz and Ferrari had opted to go for soft tyres for the sprint, and upon coming to the realisation that no one else had gone down this route, I imagine the reaction was something along the lines of, well, Those 2 words were now summing up his car's performance as the sprint entered its final stages, the Spaniard being passed by Norris and then Perez by lap 11. And with that, we haven't got much left to discuss at this point. Well, apart from the fact that Stroll retired again, and I'm sure you're all really gutted at that one. There'd be no stopping Max Verstappen though. The Dutchman came across the line to notch up yet another win in 2023 and make us wonder how exactly we've managed to stay awake if we got a longer repeat of that come Sunday. We'll find out how that went in just a moment, but first, there's not actually anyone sponsoring this video. I guess they all saw I was going to take the piss out of Americans and decided not to touch this video with a 10-foot f***ing barge pole. With that said, we're now stupidly close to reaching 100,000 subscribers, and if you'd like me to shut up about that, the best way to do so is to actually get me there. So if you're enjoying this video and are in the 67% that currently aren't subscribed, you know what to do. Also, if you're enjoying the content and want to support me further, my patrons and channel members get early access to some of my videos, so head over to the links in the description to find out more. Now let's get on with the race. Leclerc paid homage to his 100 races with Ferrari by cocking up the start, as Lando Norris got the better getaway and dived into the lead at turn 1. As the McLaren capitalised on a strong start, his teammate Oscar Piastri silently assassinated Ocon going through the S's. As the Frenchman dropped to the back, Lewis Hamilton was well and truly on the move. The Mercedes was able to quickly dispatch the Ferraris, with Max Verstappen following suit. Were we back in 2021? Well, if we were, as we waited for an almighty accident, Ocon was peeling in to retire. And he wasn't the only one, as Oscar Piastri was served some karma when his McLaren chose to kill itself on lap 11. Hamilton would now go charging after the lead McLaren of Norris, as strategy would begin to get interesting. Drivers were either going for a 1 or 2 stop, Verstappen being the first of the frontrunners to pit, committing the Dutch Messiah to the former option. Norris, Sainz and Checo would follow suit, though the Mercedes would stay out and instantly Ferrari themselves when a #blessed locked up on his worn mediums. That left the fight between Norris and Verstappen, the Dutchman switching to use mediums at his stop, yet closing up to Lando on new hards, which Pirelli have decided to make out of Play-Doh for some reason this weekend. Come lap 28, Verstappen was able to dive down the inside and quite easily take the lead. Sorry, we still have half the race to go, don't we? With Norris resigned to snitching on Max every time the Red Bull came a micron out of track limits, the tyres were beginning to come back to Hamilton, the Brit catching the leading pair and setting up a rather interesting end to the race. With Verstappen reporting imaginary issues again now he was in the lead, things were getting particularly spicy. Norris boxing on lap 34 to try and undercut Max. When Red Bull had a slow pit stop, we thought maybe this could actually happen. Then Verstappen came out well ahead of the McLaren and we all realised we'd been dreaming again. Norris had also been forced onto another set of hards, meaning it was a straight fight between him and the Red Bull for victory in COTA. Or so we thought at that point. Charles Leclerc was technically leading at this stage, though Max and Lando were about to make the Ferrari look like one of the F1 Academy cars, as both sailed past in the space of a lap. A few laps later and Hamilton would make his way onto the podium. He was running the medium tyres and starting to become a factor in this battle for the lead as well. I'll be honest, I'm struggling for jokes at this point, so let's turn to Sergio Perez. he had actually been showing some decent pace. In 6th, Hashtag Blessed was now on the back of Norris, who seemed to take the approach of if I can't have P2, no one can, though Lewis made the cut back on turn 1 and set after Max Verstappen for the win. By this point though, the gap was just too great, and maybe with one more lap things could have ended differently, but come the end of 56 tours, Verstappen crossed the line to make it 2 for 2 in COTA and 3 for 3 in the United States in 2023. You know, I'm starting to regret my assessment of this race at the start of the video, and yes, I could technically go back and re-record it and no one would know, but frankly now it's nearly midnight in the UK and I can't be arsed. We got a very good race today, though there was still no stopping Verstappen. That said, I think the pace of the Mercedes and McLaren have definitely rumbled Red Bull this weekend, and next time out at Mexico, things could be very, very interesting to watch indeed. I'll be covering that for sure, so if you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate you dropping it a like and getting subscribed to the channel for more in the future. A huge thank you to all my patrons and channel members for your continued support, and as I said earlier, if you'd like to join in the fun over there, all the links you need are down in the description below. I'll be back very soon with another video then, but until that point, have a good one.